Well, it's interesting. I'll give an example of what took place in my show. And so we're talking about Richard Sherman making his comments after leading a team to the Super Bowl, making the play. And so folks begin to call him a thug, begin to use the N-word, and we're discussing it on the show. And Clarence Page, Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist, makes this comment. He said, well, there are some black people, he prefaced Chris Rock, some black people who act like the N-word. And so I then said, well, how do you elevate yourself then? So what do you have to do to all of a sudden go into the N-word category? So it led to a conversation. And I think that shows you the power of white supremacy in that whites define behavior of African Americans. And what we have done is take on that definition and we use it ourselves as a way of calling somebody the exact same thing they call us, and we call it keeping it real, when in fact you're really keeping it racist. That's one. Another example that I think is hugely prevalent is when you've heard African Americans say, well, we shouldn't say anything or critique President Obama because, that might cause some problems and might make it hard on the brother, make it hard for him to actually do his job. And if we need to wait to the second term because we don't want to ask something of him that may cause whites not to vote for him in the second term. And I've often said is, so you mean to tell me you are not going to say anything out of the fear that somebody white might do something and not vote for him? I said, so you allowing an unknown person to control your voice and you can't even identify who that person is? That's white supremacy. That, to me, I think, is a couple of examples. It's also an example when I had an African-American teacher come up to me in 1987 when I graduated from high school and say, this was a teacher who did not teach me, but he happened to have a relative who went to the same church as mine. So he says, well, you think you're really ready to go to Texas A&M? Don't you think you ought to go to Prairie View A&M first before you go to Texas A&M? And I said, so what you're telling me is the education I receive here is a subpar education, that I'm not prepared to handle the rigors of A&M, but if I would just go to the black school, it'd be a little bit easier. That, to me, also is an example of white supremacy.